Jobs, jobs, jobs. The unemployment rate is at the lowest point it has been since 2001.
Breaking news here, the economy grew 4.1% in the second quarter.
Another month of strong numbers, 7.5 years now of job creation. That is a record stretch.
You get up every day and you play by the rules. You're investing in your families. You're investing in working very, very hard. But workers are not gaining their fair share of an ever-expanding economic pie. And why is that?
People all across the country working in jobs once considered middle class, but now living far below a middle class lifestyle.
A majority of U.S. workers have experienced a decade of flat wages,
while income inequality has shot up by as much as 50%.
People just are hustling because they don't have a job, they don't have a job that make ends meet, and they have to hustle to put food on the table.
The number of part-time jobs is soaring.
Are we redefining work here?
This is the future of work, Jim.
We are at a turning point. Good jobs are not being created and are disappearing.
It's a survival economy, particularly for low-income people who are systematically excluded from the labor market.
The workers who make up the informal economy are the most marginalized workers in the country. They are people of color, they are immigrants, they are women.
This inequality that we've been experiencing, this insecurity, is related to informal labor, is related to the fact that workers are not being protected the way they should.
What we've seen in the last 40 years is perhaps the greatest shift of income and wealth from the broad middle class to very wealthy people in this country. And it wasn't by accident.
At the end of the day, America is an idea. It's an idea about how do you construct a democratic society.
The social contract that most of us have in our mind, the bargain that we make with society as a whole, says that we should be able to access relatively stable, relatively secure employment, that basic labor standards, such as minimum wages, health and safety on the job, the right to overtime pay when we work more than 40 hours.
We've never actually lived up to the idea of a social contract. We've exalted it in our documents, but the reality of its application in the world of policy and law has fallen far short.
If you look at undocumented immigrants that are facing challenges in the labor market, African American or Latino communities that have high rates of underemployment and unemployment, women whose work has been devalued historically, you see these populations disproportionately within the informal economy. The informal economy for many years was regarded as something that occurred elsewhere. It was a phenomenon of developing economies. The view was that the United States had progressed beyond this.
The early work on the informal economy was really focusing on a sector that was supposed to disappear over time as economies modernized. What we now realize is that this is not happening, this has not been happening, and in fact, the informal economy seemed to have grown.
I think of the informal economy as a political, economic, and social space that has been created by the law and the law's exclusions. We have a whole plethora of employment and labor law protections, and there are a growing number of workers who are not covered by those protections, and those people are informal workers.
So in the case of a day laborer who's working in the construction industry, they'll be hired off the books, or you take the case of a domestic worker who may have a verbal agreement with their employer.
It could be braiding hair in your apartment. It could be washing cars in the neighborhood.
These are forms of the economy that are hiding in plain sight. But we often don't link these together. We don't see the day laborer, the domestic worker, the street vendor as inhabiting a similar set of employment relations. And so we often don't make these connections. And for that reason, we don't understand how vast the informal economy actually is.
Bueno, mi nombre es Caridad Vázquez, soy mexicana del estado de Colima. Tengo ahorita 59 años. Mi profesión es cocinera. De la edad de 8 años he sido vendedora ambulante.
Hola, ¿qué chila?
Habanero. No, y también esa picosa la verde se me hace.
We've seen that people have had to participate in the so-called informal economy just to survive. Humans are naturally entrepreneurial and will find ways to essentially better their economic position, whether they're allowed to or not.
If you think about Los Angeles, immigrants have fueled that street vending economy and have supported their families by doing so.
Yo me casé ahí en Michoacán. Yo me enseñé a hacer tamales al vapor, yo me enseñé a hacer mole, yo me enseñé a hacer quesadillas, yo me enseñé a hacer todo lo que es un platillo tradicional de Michoacán. Toda mi familia saben lo que yo me dedico, saben a lo que yo hago y ellas me apoyan. Yo siempre quiero que mi familia quede bien.
Street vending brings people together. It activates a lot of spaces that would otherwise be lonely or be dark. There's more light on the street, there's more eyes on the street. But low-income workers, mostly women, were being criminalized every day for trying to earn a living and for trying to provide for their families.
Street vendors throughout the city of Los Angeles. The city estimates there are at least 10,000 such vendors on the streets every day, all of them operating illegally.
Street vending is like the wild, wild west because there are no rules or regulations.
The street vendor campaign began in 2008, and the women have definitely led this movement. They're the ones who came to us, and they're the ones who continue to fight the hardest.
Y digan que si quieren que se legalice o no, porque si no vendemos, ellos tampoco nos van a mantener. Porque de nosotros depende la economía. Me gusta mucho el movimiento. Y pues ahora que me uní a la campaña de los vendedores, pues yo pedí ayuda, llegó ILAC, se mostró interés hacia nosotros y pues aquí estamos en la lucha.
They said, we're vending on sidewalks that are supposed to be public space. So why is it that the police are ticketing people on the sidewalks for just trying to make a living?
The battle over street vendors turns violent in Hollywood when a man flips over a food cart.
That moment, caught on video, has spread.
A woman clutching flowers as a Paris police officer tries to subdue her.
Somos dichos criminales porque nosotros vendemos en la calle. No porque no somos de este país, no tenemos derechos.
A ver, échale usted mal.
Dependemos de nosotros mismos, dependemos de nuestro trabajo, dependemos de lo que hacemos. A nosotros nadie nos da dinero para seguir adelante.
Sidewalk vendors on the streets are not only already vulnerable because they have to adhere to local ordinances and sometimes even the police or harassment from police officers. And when you are a single parent or you're a senior citizen taking care of your grandchildren or your children, and this is the only way that you know to be able to provide for your family, every day they set up their stand is a day that they might not come back home.
It's imposing a huge cost on informal worker, and it's creating this sense of fear. And we don't see the same enforcement of existing laws in other sectors of the informal economy. We don't see employers being penalized in the same ways. We don't see consumers being penalized for purchasing goods that are produced informally.